these thoughts see the light of day. Please don't run away. Wherever you are, feeling out of place.
The next race we have in the F1 calendar is Imola, and a lot of teams are bringing upgrades. The biggest upgrades are coming from Mercedes, Aston Martin, and Ferrari, which we have a lot of news on the three teams and what they're bringing and what potential they can actually gain out of these upgrades going into Imola. It's a track that a lot of teams bring upgrades to, and it's also really the first track we have in Europe. So most of the big upgrades that everybody was like, oh, Baku might be that spot. No, Imola is going to be the biggest spot, and really Baku and Miami were more used as, we're going to bring some upgrades here, but the biggest stuff is coming in the European races. Now, Ferrari has continuously talked, they just brought a new floor in Miami, so this Imola upgrade will have to entail a lot more. More towards the side pods, more towards their rear suspension, and the way that the back of the car actually performs. They also have to work on the way that their top geometry to the floor looks like, and will they have a bigger undercut? The first team I'm going to talk about is Ferrari, which is the one that I obviously actually started with. And let's talk about how those upgrades are going to look. Let's talk about side pods first. So side pods is something that I think that they're going to bring, and something that was talked about and discussed to actually be brought into Miami. Now, I guess they went with the floor upgrade over the side pod and really aero kit upgrade off the top from the Miami Grand Prix, so they can use that data to correlate it with how well will this aero package fully now work from the top. What I'm expecting with this upgrade is not for it to be a carbon copy of any other team on the grid. I mean, they are the team with a very different car. With the exception of the Haas team, there is no other car on the grid that looks like the Ferrari. So what they're probably going to bring is, I would assume there's still a team that doesn't have that real even undercut on its side pod. I think that's something that they're looking to bring in. They're also probably going to really try thinning the car out instead of widening it out. If you look at a top view of the actual Ferrari SF23, it's pretty circular and it's got its like interesting shape. It doesn't have its same bathtub design as the F175. It's a little less in that, but the way that the airflow works towards the back of the car and really the rear suspension is still very interesting to other teams, and I'm expecting them to bring a more downward slope. Clearly they're not pushing as much pace as they can, and they're still missing that downforce pace. They really need to add more points into their downforce, and adding it would be working on the upper floor with the side pod, adding a bigger undercut for more flow to go through the car, but also making it work all in one unison. The Ferrari team has struggled this year, I'd say, with tires too, so an actual front suspension kit should be coming at some point too, because they are missing that real touch to what Aston Martin has, to what even Mercedes has, or what Red Bull has to an extreme. Their tires still grain very much, and we should be expecting Ferrari to do something about that. And considering they're going fully through with this kit that was talked about in the beginning of the season of not actually happening, and oh, maybe we might transfer more into the Red Bull side, they have their own ideas, and they do believe this car to be the fastest even with the start of the season. So the biggest spots I would expect these upgrades to come in is the side pods, and I even have on screen how I think this will kind of look, as well as the upper floor geometry and how the undercut will actually go through the car even more. Before I go into the Aston Martin and Mercedes squads, thank you all so much for the support. You guys are the best on YouTube and genuinely make me so happy. Thank you all so much for the support. I love you guys. If anybody's not subscribed, please do. It would mean the world for me. And like and comment. Hit that notification bell as well to see when I'm uploading. So let's get into Aston Martin. Okay, so the team that I really cheer for, the team that I like on the grid and what they are bringing. What is the big stuff coming for the Aston Martin team? Well, first of all, while there's no real confirmation on what exactly is being brought, we know it's their biggest upgrade package to date in Imola. So I have already heard in some of the news articles in what is happening around the grid, and what is being spoken about is that a floor upgrade will come. And that is to be expected for the Aston Martin squad. Last year, their 2022 car went from probably the worst car on the grid to somewhere in between. So they do know how to upgrade packages. They did have a new rear wing come in Baku, and they used it in Miami as well. But Imola's a different track. Downforce is a lot more reliant here, and this car will perform here. But yet again, the floor is still another important upgrade, and we even saw Red Bull in Baku bring an upgrade to the floor. So Aston Martin has to match the pace or even get stronger to continue performing well on its car. I do expect floor upgrades, and I expect even really the top of the floor. I even spoke about it in a video before that the top of the floor is still very simple over there at Aston Martin. If you look at the Red Bull car, it's got those veins going through it in its upper floor and really within the chassis design of its like front nose. I think Aston Martin is going to look to develop even more under that undercut. Its side pods look to be doing the job. Now, they could be adding a couple different lines, maybe skinny in the side pod a little bit, go a little bit more further into that downward wash. That is my expectation of this team, upper and underfloor. And that is a big upgrade package really coming for them, and something that they expect will bring them a lot of pace. Their biggest upgrades that we know of so far are coming into Imola, Canada, and Silverstone. Those are their 3 races where they said these are our 3 big upgrade packages for now, and something is to be expected in the second half of the season, which is exciting news for anybody that's an Aston Martin fan, and if they can catch that Red Bull team. Imola is a track that will really test whether this car is to the standard that they hold it at. Is this the car that will bring us a championship battle? Can they upgrade that much, or will they wait into 2024 and really bring the power? I mean, it all depends on how much they can upgrade and how aggressive this package is. Remember, the first quote that Dan Follow said before the season even started is 75% of this car will change by the end of the year. Now, we've probably gotten 30% of the car changed for now. Let's expect another 20 coming into this, and a big package for Aston Martin to really pull out that pace that they have in that car. Obviously, straight line speed has been their biggest deficit, but it also has to come with the high speed cornering. So this could play an important part, adding more downforce points as well as reducing drag. Now, last team, the team that's most anticipated for the Imola Grand Prix is the Mercedes squad. And let's start off with some rumors going around for this upgrade package. Originally, this package was supposed to be a B-spec Mercedes car. Now, they can't change the chassis, so it isn't classified as a B-spec. Does that mean that it won't be a car that completely looks different? False. The car will look completely different, but it seems that they're having problems on whether they should bring it to Imola or if they should bring it to Spain. Now, I'm going to go along and say that this is a rumor going along right now. I think they're going to bring everything at Imola. Both Hamilton and George have talked about the car being a completely different concept coming into Imola, and it was even talked about the upgrade package coming sooner than later. What this will really bring, and what they will bring, what's already confirmed, is a new upper floor, an underfloor, and a completely different front suspension setup. We do know that they talked about multiple times over the front suspension being where they're lacking when it comes to their tire graining and not being able to settle the car to go lower into the high speed corners and really the straight line speed. Now, they're going to bring that. That's a pretty obvious one. I even talked about what their side pod could look like. It's not going to be an Aston Martin. It's not going to be a Red Bull. It's going to be something that follows their aero concept going to the rear suspension. So yeah, maybe they do follow something closer to the Aston Martin car, but they're not going to just copy and paste an Aston Martin car or a Red Bull car. They don't have the information to do that. So it's something that they have learned and something they expected to bring from the beginning of the season. Now, what this will really bring and what this will really gain for the Mercedes squad is their biggest weaknesses. Biggest weaknesses, as I talked about, is not being able to settle the car on the curbs. Both Ferrari and Mercedes struggle with this. They're not able to put the car down low enough, but also the car isn't able to ride curbs. So when they're trying to go for different paths or really improve upon their qualifying pace, they aren't able to because they have to follow a different direction. So it will bring more qualifying pace, but as well as hold the tires together for a very long period of time. And really the biggest talking point for both Mercedes teams, which is Aston Martin and Mercedes themselves, is the straight line speed and where they can actually compete with Red Bull and where they can't. Now, they're always going to be slower, in my opinion, than Red Bull when it comes to straight line speed. It seems like the engine is a little better, their ERS system is a little better, but they can get closer, and where they really need to gain is in the corners, especially high speed. High speed is where they lack the most, so bring upgrades to its upper floor to put more downforce points, but also the biggest talking point going into this Mercedes squad and what is expected of them to bring is changing the seating position for Lewis Hamilton. And apparently, the two cars might look a little bit different because George Russell isn't very much like, hey, I'm not very disappointed with this, but they're expecting to bring something to actually help Lewis Hamilton change the seating position. And this could help big time with both the balance of the car, but also, and really the biggest talking point of it is, the driver will feel more comfortable, and Lewis Hamilton is a 7-time world champion. If he's comfortable, he's going to bring the best out of the car, and we even saw that last year. Think about performances in 2022 like France or even like Hungary, where he was just unstoppable in a comfortable feeling car. We have yet to see that. Let's see what Lewis can bring onto the grid and really that Mercedes squad. These are 3 big teams bringing upgrades and what we should expect going into Imola. I am stupidly excited to see what they bring, and I'll be covering that as soon as it comes out. Thank you all so much for the support. Please leave a like, subscribe, it would mean the world, and